So if you're like me and you recently watched Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, you might have felt inspired to read some more books about Greek myths. And I'm not an expert on the Greek myths and legends and prolific writers, but I do dabble in it now and again. And while I was watching the movie, I was thinking about some of my favourite things that I've read in relation to ancient stories, and it inspired a video idea. So I'm gonna split this video into 3 different parts. The first part is just gonna be about like the Greek myths. The second part is just books that I think fit the vibe, whether because of theme or because of setting. And the third is books that are about a journey to get back home. So stories about the Greek myths. The first one has got to be Circe. When I was watching the Odyssey, the parts with Circe just reignited my love for this book. This book is just all about Circe, as the title suggests. We get to see her whole life, really, and we really come to understand why she lives on this island and turns men into animals. And you may also remember that in the movie, Circe says that her sister is the bird in the cage. Now, her sister gave birth to the Minotaur. Wild. Also, I would really love to recommend and would love you to read The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. The Silence of the Girls is a retelling of the Iliad, which is a prequel to Homer's The Odyssey, and it's from the perspective of Briseis, who becomes a slave to Achilles. And I think why I love this book is so often when we are told stories of the ancient past, they are from the perspective of the men. And you don't often really get to see just how hard it was for the women who were sold into slavery and didn't have any autonomy. Briseis is a great character, and also it does vilify the men in the story, but you also do see from Achilles' perspective and Patroclus's perspective, and it doesn't completely take the narrative like all men are terrible. It understands the context of the time and understands that people aren't wholly good and wholly bad. There's a mixture of good and bad in all of us. Also, this book is really accessible. It's really easy to understand. If maybe you're a bit daunted about going in and reading the Odyssey and the Iliad, I think this is a great entry point. Also, if you're interested in reading more from the female perspectives within these Greek stories, then I would recommend Margaret Atwood's The Penelopiad. This is basically the story of Penelope, who Anne Hathaway plays in the Odyssey. So you get to see more what life was like for her, having to deal with all these suitors and having to deal with the many years when Odysseus was away. I'd also like to mention Euripides. Now, maybe people would think of Euripides as Homer's contemporary, but that is not in fact the case. Homer was around in like 700 BC and Euripides was more like 400 BC. So actually there was a lot of time between them. But I suppose the further and further you get from the past, the more time in the past feels like it's squished together. And probably my favourite of Euripides' plays is Electra, and this has a direct connection to the Odyssey. So Electra is the daughter of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra. And the relationship between Agamemnon and Clytemnestra is touched upon in the Odyssey. We see a little bit of a flashback, but if you're wondering like why did Clytemnestra kill Agamemnon, what is going on there, then you should definitely take a look at Electra. I also really love this play because last year there was a reimagining of Electra starring Brie Larson at the theatre in London, and I got cheap tickets for £10 to sit at the very front. And so seeing like Brie Larson play Electra like right in front of you was really quite an experience. Now I want to talk about some books that fit the vibe of the Odyssey. The first one that comes to mind is Glorious Exploits by Ferdia Lennon. This is set during the Peloponnesian War, which is set quite a while after the Trojan War. Peloponnesian War is like 412 BC, whereas the Trojan War, was like 700 BC. So like Homer and Euripides are actually quite far apart. The Trojan War and the Peloponnesian War are also quite far apart. But ancient Greece was kind of similar during those 2 wars, at least to my modern eyes, it looks quite similar. And the Peloponnesian War is more notably between the Athenians and the Spartans. And this book is set, it's taking place in a quarry where there are Athenian slaves, and we follow 2 main characters who live nearby, and they decide to put on a play using the Athenian plays because they really like Euripides. So that also links back to the Odyssey theme, because Euripides did write plays in relation to the Trojan War and in relation to the Odyssey. This is a really great one if you're looking for an accessible book that explores the time period of ancient Greece, even though it is set in Syracuse, which would be Sicily. I also thought I'd mention Piranesi. Now, Piranesi is very much an original story, and it doesn't really look at Greek gods, but it explores really how the kind of ancient mysticism that existed in the past has dwindled in the modern age. So it's about a man who exists in a world with just one other person, and this world is just full of these ancient halls and vestibules. There are like countless marble statues. Crazy. And he doesn't know why he's here. So you need to read the book to figure out what he's doing there and what's up with this world full of just loads of marble statues. Now I want to talk about some books that are about journeying and trying to get back home. It was quite fun to try and think of books that fit the theme, and I realised I haven't read that many books that are about journeying to get back home. One book that did come to mind is James by Percival Everett. This book is kind of very similar to Odyssey and very different at the same time. So this book is about a slave called James who realises that he's going to be sold, and he doesn't want to be sold, so he decides to run away. And in running away, he leaves his wife and his daughter behind. So he is running away, but also he wants to get back to them to be able to buy them and save them from their life of slavery. And he mainly follows the Mississippi River. And at times his plight feels quite meandering and a bit confusing. And you really get a sense of the hopelessness, but also there are like these little nuggets of hope which keep you from feeling a total amount of despair. And the way that James encounters these different individual challenges and obstacles did feel quite similar to Odysseus's journey as well. Also, at the moment, I'm reading through Lord of the Rings by j.r.r.tolkien, and if you're talking about journeys, you can't help but mention Lord of the Rings. I mean, Lord of the Rings, I suppose you could argue, isn't about a journey back home, but then it really is. Although the hobbits are journeying to Mordor to destroy the ring, their ultimate goal is to get back home again. So it fits. Also, I thought I'd mention I Who Have Never Known Men. This is also kind of about journeying back home, but it's made more difficult because the people don't know where their home is. They don't really know where they are and what's going on. So really like the impossible take on trying to journey back home. So if you've read the Odyssey, I think you would enjoy any of these books. Let me know if there are any books you would suggest reading if someone liked the Odyssey. I'm always looking for new books about Greek gods or journeys. And thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye bye.